Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 22nd Planning Board meeting. I'd like to start with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Just a few announcements. As normal, emergency exits are to your left and right in this room. The restrooms are out and to the left, out the doors. Please, if you haven't, please sign the sign-in sheet on the back table, and even if you're presenting. And there are business cards with contact information for the planning department as well. Also, there are copies of resolutions that we'd be reading tonight. However, this evening there are none, so you won't see anything there, plus the copies of the agenda. Please silence your cell phones so you don't interrupt those presenting before the board, and take any conversations you may wish to have out into the hallway, and close the doors behind you so that you don't disrupt the balance of the meeting. Thank you. Lisa has one set of meetings that she prepared for this meeting from 6:10. Anyone have any comments for her on those?
No word.
Joe?
No.
Scott? Okay.
No.
Entertain a motion for approval of the June 10th.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
And Scott was faster, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. Correspondence received.
So last meeting, there was some YouTube comments down here for Norbutt, so
Okay.
we just included those as correspondence.
Do we have copies of those for the board?
Everyone has a copy.
Perfect. Yep, okay, yeah, they're on the table in front of you. Thanks, Lisa. Is Drew here this evening? Okay, so no report from the town board or update. And Keith Maynard, planning board update for the next meeting, which is August 12th, I believe.
Keith Maynard, project manager for the town of Victor. Yep, your next planning board meeting is August 12th at 7 p.m. There's two new things on the agenda. One is Bow Wow Dog Salon at 7235 State Route 96. Applicant is requesting approval to operate a dog grooming and kennel facility at an existing building. It would include 43 kennels, one grooming area, office space, and then a fenced-in area outside. The second one is an addition on Walmart, 441 Commerce Drive. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 1,974 square foot addition on the northwest side of the existing building, which is on the back of the store, in place of existing asphalt. Online pickup and delivery will increase their pickup spots also from 8 to 24. Anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Keith? We have just two items on the agenda. The balance of them have been removed to at least the next meeting. First one tonight is the Chick-fil-A restaurant. This is an open public hearing at Eastview Mall. The applicant's requesting approval to construct 5,331 square foot quick serve restaurant with a double lane drive-through and outdoor patio. We had a informal meeting with the applicant approximately 4 weeks ago, I think, here at the town hall with several of us from the town and attorneys, and discussed the site plan that will be presenting this evening, to give the board an opportunity to comment on what we at the meeting. Sorry, Joe. I'll try to speak louder.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so we will be seeing that site plan this evening, and if you guys are ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Charles Gottlieb. I'm the land use counsel for Chick-fil-A. I'm from a law firm, Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna in Albany, New York. Here this evening with our project engineer, Tim Freitag from Bowler Engineering, our project traffic engineer, Christine Bianchi, also a representative from Chick-fil-A, Zach Middlebrooks, as well as Eric Wright from the Wilmrite. We have a proposed 5,397 square foot Chick-fil-A. As the chairman mentioned, we have been before you a few times to review this restaurant with drive-through. We have spent months and months and months and months and months on this project, all for the better. First, we did a pretty extensive architectural review with the board, the chairman, and others in the town, which I believe has resulted in an excellent-looking building fitting in with the character of the community. At a prior planning board meeting, we presented conceptually the site plan before this board. And of course, one of the issues is that the majority of that prior site plan was the building was in the no-build zone, which is a deed covenant restricting development and structures in that area that you see on the screen. So we were charged with by the planning board at that last meeting to take a look at alternatives. How can we, in the most feasible manner possible, move that building, move the drive-through, move the parking areas as far away from that no-build zone as possible? The board also asked us to explore landscaping, design some grading, and take a look at the drainage as well. Now, Tim will get into some of the details, but a lot of the considerations that the design team had to go through when seeing what is feasible and what's not feasible to bring the project outside of the no-build zone are parking and access, the ability to relocate the ring road and how much we can relocate the ring road and what does that mean to traffic and pedestrian safety, as well as we had to deal with the Macy's area that is, you can see, I believe it's to the, I'm going to say northwest of the project site there. Macy has under control a pretty significant portion of that parking area that we had to stay out of. So we had to balance all these factors when trying to complete the task of moving the building. We've provided the planning board with a response to comment document, a site plan drawing, a comparison overlay drawing showing what we originally proposed and what we propose now, grading and drainage plan, and a landscaping plan. In short, we have rotated and shifted the building and the parking area, so it is much more outside of that no-build zone. We have a slight modification to the ring road to pull it out of the no-build zone even further. We have pulled it as close as possible as we can to the Macy's line where Macy's has control. We fully comply, and then some, with the front yard setback out of New York Route 96, and we have some additional landscaping. To put some numbers on this, the prior plan that this board looked at had 68,500 square feet of area proposed to be removed from that no-build zone. We also proposed a 40-foot front yard setback where 80 feet is required under the code. Obviously, that didn't fly. The revised plan, we're excited to share, has 42,400 square feet removed from the no-build zone. So we're preserving over 20,000 square feet of that no-build zone. We're now proposing an 85-foot front yard setback to State Route 96, where 80 feet is required under your code. Now, the no-build restriction, that's not a zoning code requirement. That is a product of prior approvals that the mall had received. It's in the title of the project site, and to modify it, which this board has done twice, I believe, requires planning board authorization to modify the no-build covenant. Once we receive that authorization, we then go to the town board. The town board reviews it, authorizes the town supervisor to execute the revised covenant. That's why we're here this evening. We are really looking, we're at a point now where we would really ask this planning board to either take a straw vote or a formal vote just on this specific issue. So Chick-fil-A has a direct understanding of where we stand with the town of Victor. Before I hand it over to Tim, a few reasons why you should allow this slight modification to the no-build zone. We are now fully compliant with the front yard setback, and we even provide 5 more feet than that which is required. Now, the front yard setback is in the zoning code for a reason. It's what the town board believes is the appropriate buffer between any structure and a right-of-way, a road, a highway, what have you. Here, we are fully compliant with that 80 feet. So without the no-build zone, strictly looking at the zoning code, we're providing more of a front yard setback than is required under the code. We understand there is a no-build covenant on this property, but we're asking for that to be modified so that the restrictions of the zoning code apply to us, right? We're 85 feet away, where 80 feet is required. Secondly, there's a pretty significant grade difference, which I believe you all know. I drove by the site again today. There is a small retaining wall proposed that Tim will walk you through. But really, when you're driving by on 96, you're still going to see the newly landscaped and the existing green area. And you're not going to realize that that 40,000 square feet or so has been removed from that no-build zone. I'd also like to highlight, this is a highly commercial part of the town. This town is lucky enough to have the Eastview Mall located within it, which is a huge source of revenue for the town of Victor. In my eyes, it's likely one of the most successful malls in the state of New York. I do work all over the state of New York, and the fact that it has been able to stay vibrant is nothing less than remarkable. You want to keep that going. You want to keep reigniting interest in the mall site, and Chick-fil-A will do just that. You will bring new customers into the site. Those customers will then visit the mall and so forth and so on. So there's a huge economic development aspect to all of this. And lastly, with the hotel that is proposed on the site that you had mentioned earlier, comparing the two projects, understanding, they likely may or may not go side by side, we're still preserving 30% green space on the overall project site. So I'll hand it over to Tim. That said, we are really looking to know tonight from the planning board if you would authorize this change in the no-build covenant. And so Chick-fil-A can consider whether it needs to continue its investments into the community or not. So we would really appreciate some guidance on that this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. You hit on the majority of it, so you make my job pretty easy here. Tim with Bowler Engineering, helping out on the site engineering here. What I just want to start off with is walking the board through our exercise of coming up with this revised layout to show some of the background work that went into finding this layout and coming to the conclusion that this is the best layout moving forward. So if we could switch the slide to the first slide. It wasn't the colored render, but it was the site plan over the aerial right here. That does a good job of showing kind of the background conditions of the ring road and where we ended up. On my easel here at the top, that's the original site plan that was shown to this board that we kind of got the thumbs down on because it impacted too much of the no-build area. And on the screen and below it is where we are today. But when this board challenged us on the first site plan, we went back to the drawing board and exhausted a whole roll of onion skin trace paper to figure out where this is best going to fall. We were rotating the building, we were putting the parking lot in the front and the side and the rear yards, and one layout that I think members of this board introduced to us that they wanted us to investigate was positioning the building actually on the northwest side and facing the front of the store towards the intersection with 96. We looked at that, and if you look on the screen, you can kind of see where the existing ring road is and the area of the existing parking lot that we're now integrating the parking and the new ring road.
There's a laser probably there for you if it helps.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yep, right here. So we looked at positioning the building right here. And if you look on the screen, you can kind of see where the existing ring road is and the area of the existing parking lot that we're now integrating the parking and the new ring road. So we looked at positioning the building right here. facing the front of the store to the intersection. So this would be your line of sight. Your parking lot would be out front here, and your drive-through around the back. The concern is, if you see the existing location of that ring road, we can't really pull that further south, because then you start interfering with this circulation of traffic, and bringing this driveway closer here didn't really work well from a traffic circulation perspective. Then you end up with that ring road in the middle of our parking lot, and the best thing that we can achieve with these isolated drive-through layouts, and by an isolated drive-through layout, I mean the drive-through is around the perimeter of the site behind the building and the parking lots before it. Traditional layouts is the drive-through was around the building and parking around the perimeter. The isolated layout, and if you look at my board here, you can park, go into the store, and back out to the parking lot, and up here. You can park, go into the store, back out to the parking lot, without ever having to cross the drive-through traffic. It's such a key feature in the design of these Chick-fil-A's that separate out your drive-through vehicles and your pedestrians walking into the store. We couldn't do that with positioning the building on the northwest side. We tried, it just didn't work. Here, we are relocating the ring road further northwest. It is impacting some of the parking over here. It does result in a loss of parking to the overall center. I believe we formally discussed that parking is underutilized. Everybody acknowledges that, maybe except one day of the year on Black Friday. But there was an opportunity for us to push over, and we decreased the impact to green space from 1 acre to an increase of 0.34 acres. So this revised site plan has almost 30,000 square feet of additional green space compared to that initial site plan. That's a huge achievement as part of this. We're also right at the limit that we can push further northwest with getting Macy's not involved and not needing to approve this layout. We go any further into Macy's layout, the project's probably on life support at that point. It is no feat to relocate this ring road. That's a big challenge, but the applicant is now willing to undertake that with ownership involvement, and it's a big cost to the project, but they're willing to do that. So this revised layout, as Charlie mentioned, the setback from 96 goes from 40 feet to the property line to 85 feet. There's still additional green space buffer between the property line and the road, so there's more green space there. And we're able to keep a lot of the existing mature trees up in that landscape. So if we could switch to the next slide, that shows all the trees along our frontage that we can now keep with this layout. And you can kind of see the green perimeter right here around the perimeter. That's the limits of the grading that we're gonna do. We're gonna start cutting grade there to come down to our site. So our site is still gonna sit lower than the road, but all the other vegetation and green space out front is proposed to remain.
Tim, is that going to remain mowable, that green? Okay.
So
I
it's
didn't know how steep you were going with
It's at a
that.
3-on-1 slope, so you
Okay.
can still mow that. And then there is still a wall around this corner, but it's less than 4 feet, so it's not considered a structure. There will be a fence on there just for safety fence. We'll make sure that that matches the aluminum black railings that are around the site, so it is still aesthetically pleasing. But we were able to get rid of that large wall in the frontage in that structure and no longer need the structure in that front yard. With that, does everybody understand the proposed circulation and site plan? Are there any initial questions or comments related to the site plan?
Joe?
Several observations. I think reorienting the building so it's perpendicular to 96 actually increases motorists' view of the building as opposed to when it was parallel to 96.
Yeah.
I do appreciate your efforts to work with us on this, and Macy's was contacted, then I take it, about moving that into their space.
We're right at the limits to where my understanding is they don't need to approve that revised ring road. If we were to move it over anymore, they would have approval rights.
Okay.
And I'll defer to ownership if that's different.
Joe, was your question, were they contacted about the possibility rather than
Correct.
not
Yeah.
having to be involved right now? So I think at our meeting that there was a comment about Macy's was not in a good position to consider making major or even significant changes on the lines, relining things. Is that true? I mean, is it? Okay, maybe you should step up just to answer the question on the record.
Yeah, Eric Wright with Wilmer Wright. That's my understanding, that, yeah, Macy's, there's been some informal conversations, but they're not in a position to accommodate shifting the restaurant onto their parcel.
So reorganizing or swapping, I'll call it, parking spaces from Wilmerite's space to Macy's and vice versa to accommodate a bigger move by Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's not on the table for Macy's, yep.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then, I'm not sure what your traffic study shows, but reorienting the ring road like that, does that maybe take some pressure off the other entrance and maybe facilitate customers coming in from that intersection?
Yeah, and one of the bigger discussion points at the workshop meeting leading up to this is actually a prior exhibit had this entrance right here shifted to about right here. But we actually adjusted that and shifted this entrance north to promote this right turn movement. So all of our exiting traffic is going to align well with this exit. Take a right turn, and it puts more pressure on this underutilized intersection than this one. So to answer your question, yes, this does reduce impacts to this intersection and promotes more maneuvers to the underutilized area.
I think that's a nice idea. It really is one of our concerns quite a bit.
Or I'm taking pressure off of that triangular intersection with the no stop through on entrance
That's a good deal.
is great. And honestly, the entrance from where Goodwill is, I don't consider that an intersection anymore with this arrangement. First of all, you're not stopping traffic going through. It's more like a driveway entrance to a road. So you, as much a concern as there is being offsetting intersections, I don't even look at it as offsetting anymore. I just look at it as a intersection with a driveway further up. So
Yeah.
that's a benefit, in my opinion, to this alignment.
And to that point, this, the Goodwill, then the Raymore Flanagan is right here, so it's not really a cut-through thoroughfare. It's, to your point, a driveway to those businesses.
So,
So that's all I've got.
okay. Al, any questions, thoughts?
I would echo Joe's comments. I think it's a much improved. It preserves a majority of the very important green space. I think the reorientation of the ring road is a very positive for the overall flow for the site. And I think the safety of the pedestrians and parking into and out of the Chick-fil-A is much enhanced. I guess while this was an elongated process, and fairness to the board, we've been very consistent since day one. And I just think it took a while for the applicant to get around to understanding that that really was a hard requirement. So glad to see the progress, though.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, moving this ring road is no feat. It does need approvals, outside of the applicant's control, so that's been working in the background to get to this point too. But I agree, we really do like the way this site plan lays out for the Chick-fil-A operations.
That's all I have, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott?
I was curious, for the connection to High Street, are there any improvements planned from 96 along that way coming into the triangle, as Joe calls it? What's taking place there?
Yeah, nothing at this time. The result of the traffic study suggested some traffic signal adjustments. DOT came back and responded saying, let's leave it the way it is. We'll monitor it after opening, and we can make those adjustments if need be after opening. That's my understanding, the latest of where DOT fell.
That intersection's tied into RTOC, isn't it? For the traffic control, so it's all electronically monitored. So that's one way they can check on performance, as I'm sure you're familiar, so.
I agree with this layout. I think this is a far better layout, far better way of minimizing the impact to the green space and the, I'm trying to figure out what you called it, the covenant or whatever it is that is also affected by this. If green space is being removed and we're at our minimum green space right now, does that mean that green space will be created somewhere else? Compensate for that?
So my understanding, and Charlie can correct me wrong if I'm wrong, we would still need a area variance from the ZBA for overall green space. But there is a separate ongoing project for a hotel project elsewhere on this premises that actually is creating green space that would offset the net result. But since that's not approved at this time, we're still being asked to go pursue the variance for the reduction in green space. But it's very minor. It's going from 34.7% to 34.3% across the shopping center.
Anything else?
This has always been, prime green space, but I think, obviously, this is where they want to be. And I think they've mitigated it quite well.
Okay.
All I have.
Yeah, Joe, just one more comment, and I know it was alluded to, but certainly to retain the maximum amount of existing vegetation.
There's some pretty more mature trees
Yes.
up there. Every time I go through there now, I kind of look at those big trees and kind of lament a little that we're going to lose a few of them, but hopefully with the new landscaping plan and trees, they'll get a chance to restore it and freshen it up, I guess. So,
There's a way to integrate that green space into the restaurant and by way of, pedestrian access or something like that. It would enhance not only the restaurant, but also, the walkability of that area where we've got stores across the street and such, and we don't really have a very walkable area there yet. Something that could be enhanced.
yeah, the closest crossing is actually the underutilized green
Right.
crossing, not the High Street.
Right.
I mean, I don't recall if there's sidewalks that actually you can use along there, but certainly there's nothing on an entrance go across the street from one to the other. I wouldn't try to cross that as a pedestrian, honestly.
It's challenging here with the grade change too,
Yeah.
a sidewalk connectivity perspective.
Okay, you had some additional thoughts, I think, coming, you got some initial impressions from us. Anything else you wanted to highlight for the board?
No, I think what we're looking for is, as Charlie mentioned, is we spent a lot of time, money, full design, traffic studies on the initial application. The applicant's at a point where we really want to just refine the site plan before we amend our full application with all the engineering, the details, the updated traffic studies, et cetera. We're looking for kind of a head nod from this board that this site plan seems like the direction we should go. And then the first step or action, as Charlie indicated, is making a recommendation on the no-build adjustment, and Charlie can speak on that.
Sure. So what we're looking for this evening is conceptual approval. I'm not sure if this board typically does that, but that's kind of the head nod that we would need to then, my office would start drafting the amended declaration. Tim's office would, create the survey that would go along with that, and we would provide that with this board. But before those investments are made in the larger engineering drawings and so forth and so on, we would like the board to take a conceptual vote on this, so the applicant has some solid ground to stand on.
So, conceptual vote isn't something that we normally do. However, I think what I tried to reflect at our workshop meeting was we can do a survey of the board saying if there's any showstoppers right now, to give you an opportunity to then say, all right, well, the board seems to be behind this. Would the board have a favorable opinion of changing the covenant for the no-build area to provide this site plan? And then at the next meeting, I think, or one of the next meetings when we go for site plan approval, they would also be proposing or bringing forward a proposed amendment to that covenant that we could then vote on based on this plan as developed. So,
As we complete the secret process as well.
right.
Okay, assuming that's okay with Zach from Chick-fil-A, kind of just going to do like an auction last call. Are there any red flags here
Yeah.
with
So,
the modifications to the no-build
Okay,
area?
so we've heard some good positive opinions on what you brought before. Joe, any thoughts on advancing this further with this plan?
I don't see any deal breakers. I think Chick-fil-A has worked very hard to come along both architecturally, conceptually with layout, et cetera, so I don't see any red flags,
Okay.
and I have a very positive view about this whole thing.
All right, Al?
Yeah, I echo Joe's comments as well as the fact that the most sensitive areas of the green space, I think, is being preserved. And, you know, a majority of the impervious surface proposed is existing impervious surface, so,
Yeah.
surface. So I can support the
Okay.
the concept layout.
Scott?
I agree.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, can you explain to me what the covenant is and how that works and
Sure, it's,
why we're changing it and that sort of thing?
absolutely, it's very similar to, you see 'em on, if you guys do subdivisions a lot, you know, you can't have a shed here, you can't have a driveway here.
A
you
deed
know.
restriction, yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that, at some point when you were reviewing something on the mall, you kind of, I want to say bartered a little bit with the applicant at that time and said, okay, well, you can do this expansion, but let's preserve this area for the time being.
I see.
But in that covenant, it allows modifications, and the planning board has modified it twice.
Well, that's in addition to the whole green space.
Correct, the green space, the 30% green space requirement, that's a zoning code requirement.
Right.
This is in addition to
Okay.
the zoning code.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what we were talking about. Thank you.
So, Susie, could you go to the exhibit showing the red overlay over the previously proposed overlay? There it is. That to me is the most dramatic improvement, is the area outside to the right and to the bottom of that image and as to how much green space we're actually preserving. And as a graphic, I very much appreciate you guys bringing that forward. I know that it was questionable if you had enough time to do all the different things that you brought, but you did a good job with it. I think taking the extra couple of weeks to give the
Yeah, it helped.
the engineers a chance to really bring that forward to the board visually helps us a lot. I like everyone else's comments, and I think this is a good advancement to the proposal that you guys have made. So I don't see any showstoppers.
Excellent, I appreciate it, and I do think the project is much better with all the planning board comments, so the process is working. Thank you very much.
All right, look forward to seeing you guys next time. Okay,
Public hearing's open. Anybody got anything to say?
sorry?
Public hearing's still open. Anybody got anything?
That's true. The public is here. Does anyone from the public have any comments? The board is keeping the public hearing open for the moment. So, Dave, did you have anything? You look raring to come up and say something.
David Wright, 33 Ketchum Street, not related to trails. I was just curious if the applicant looked at any other locations within Eastview Mall.
I'll answer part of that, this in part. We've asked that question several times.
Okay.
This appeared to be the best, the most viable one, certainly from a visibility sense, but for traffic circulation. If you guys want to make a comment on what you've looked at to date, other sites on the mall?
That's correct. So, you know, there are certain requirements for Chick-fil-A when they're doing their project site selection. This was the only feasible location on the mall site. You know, what we can do, obviously, we're coming back with some more documents. We can explain that a little further for the record and for clarification.
Okay, great, thanks. That Dave or something else?
Because I know you do have before you a hotel
Yep.
also within Eastview Mall, and they didn't require it to be visible from Route 96. And so I just wonder what was special about this particular project that required it to be in the no-build area. That's all.
It's kind of hard to answer that question without getting the additional information. My personal
Well, I'm
opinion.
thinking that it was Chick-fil-A needs to be visible on 96, or they wouldn't be able to
That's, yeah.
be a viable business.
If you hid Chick-fil-A at the
I
backside
think-
of the mall.
I think Chick-fil-A could be in the desert, and there still be people coming to Chick-fil-A.
I've heard that comment amongst other board members at previous meetings, so I think there's sympathy to that as well. So, but my opinion, you guys have gone a long way to helping us solve the challenge of this corner. So, I guess. Kate, anything from LaBella's perspective at the moment?
Kate Powers, LaBella Associates. No comments at this time. We look forward to seeing the full plan set.
Okay. Unless there's anything else from our guests, we'll keep the public hearing open and look forward to seeing you guys next time. So, you're welcome. So the next item and only other item on the planning board's agenda is the Norbit Solar Farm, Main Street Fishers, owners Fishers Hollow LLC, applicants requesting approval to develop 4.428 megawatt solar energy facility. Is that right? And megawatt, James?
Yes, that sounds right. It's
Okay.
yeah, 4.43
And-
megawatt.
MWAC, I was unfamiliar with those four strung together. If it was just MW.
Megawatt alternating current.
Yeah, okay, I would have guessed that, but haven't seen that before. So anyway, solar energy facility, 34.93 acres. James, all
Perfect.
yours.
So, I'm James Creticos with BME Associates. I have Victor Chacha with Norbit Solar Farms with me. So I believe this is our third meeting in front of you guys.
For this round?
Yes, I think this is the third one. This would be our fourth meeting, but we tabled ourselves for one of the meetings. So we were last in front of you guys 2 weeks ago. Since then, we had a number of things occur. We did a site visit to Norbit's Parma site, which has similar static panels, inverter equipment that was with the chairman, as well as the town engineer, Wes Petty, as well as some town staff, Keith, code enforcement. Really just kind of showing everybody what the panels look like firsthand up close to get a good feel of that equipment. We also did a secondary site visit at the actual property last week after that with, again, the same personnel. We walked them around the sites, looked at the neighboring properties, the vegetated buffers, kind of the wooded brush areas at the north end of the site versus the southern portion, and really just kind of got everybody comfortable with where the development's going to be and kind of what the surrounding atmosphere, ambient noise, et cetera, is on site firsthand. We also did receive town engineer comment letter from last week. We provided 2 separate response packages to that. One came from my office. We provided responses to all the non-decommissioning comments. NSF just submitted something earlier today on those remaining comments for the decommissioning updated study. Basically, they did everything that was requested of that. So that document is now in front of you guys for review. Obviously, I don't expect you guys to have gotten through any of that today. But if you, between tonight and the next meeting, if you have any additional questions, we'd be happy to provide responses or answers to them. With part of the information that came from my office with the responses to that, we did include updated site plans. Those site plans update everything based on all town staff comments, coordination with Bob Graham, the fire marshal, and bring those basically 100% current as of today. We provided the ambient sound study that we completed at the project site. I'll get into that in a little bit. We provided an exhibit for the glare study just to help identify the observation points from that study, because it's a little bit, some of the graphics in there are a little hard to read with the stuff that gets auto-generated out of that software that is uneditable. We provided a revised EAF, which we just updated the disturbance based on some of LaBella's comments, as well as an existing ground slope exhibit, again, based on some comments. So I think the kind of the key things to go over that for the rest of the board is the ambient sound study. So what we ended up doing was we did 8 monitoring periods at the site on the day that was reviewed, which I believe was 2 weeks ago and some change. It was a sunny day, no wind, greater than 10 miles an hour, nothing out of the normal, basically what we saw when we did our site visit last week. At each location, they were about an hour, so we started on the east side, monitored there for an hour, moved the equipment to the north property line, monitored there, to the west property line, south, and then went around again. So for the east receptor, which I think is the one everybody's primarily concerned with, yep, perfect. So for this location where we set up the equipment, basically in the morning, the ambient sound pressure out there was 42.5 dBA. In the afternoon or the 12 to 1 period, it was 47.6. Our projected sound pressure level from our equipment under perfect conditions with no obstructions, no vegetation, no anything else blocking it is 44 decibels. So in the afternoon, we were approximately 3.5 decibels lower than the ambient sound pressure out there. In the morning, it showed that we were about 1.5 decibels higher than that. In the comment letter that came back from Abella, they referenced a DEC guidance document on sound analyses and going through kind of the step process. That is how this document was prepared and reviewed. So this is basically the level 1 study of in line with how that document would be found. In that document, they talk about the different sound pressure levels, and one of the things they note, which is included in that study, is if you have a sound pressure difference of 3 decibels or less, it's indistinguishable from the ambient sound out there. So the fact that our modeled pressure is 44 and the ambient in the quieter period is 42.5, you wouldn't be able to tell or distinguish the sound from our equipment. And again, this is after, we're going to propose additional landscaping there. We're not taking down the existing vegetation and brush, which is very substantial at this point in the summer. And again, we provided pictures to you guys from April when we did a site walk before any leaves came on, and it's still pretty dense brush. So we're really making a pretty decent screen in that buffer area. This is one of the other.
Can you tell me, I'm sorry.
Sure, please interrupt.
The difference between the min-max on the sound levels? Is it traffic from the thruway picks up, increases the ambient noise in the afternoon, or how do you account for that?
So that is probably likely. If you go on site, and I'm sure the chairman can, echo this, is when you're on site, you hear the traffic. Even at the southern portion, it's kind of just like a constant background noise that is out there. Yes, anything can affect sound pressure levels. An airplane flying overhead or any sort of equipment. The way the monitoring period and how the study recommends is you monitor continuous period over the length of time, and then the LAEQ, which is like an average weighted sound pressure level across that, and that's how the DEC recommends you establish the ambient sound reading. So there are periods, if you look in the detail of the report, you can kind of see where there's a little spike for a little bit, and then it kind of drops down. So to do that and then establish that, yes. At the north end of the site, for instance, on the north monitoring where we're close to the thruway, it was 60 decibels ambient sound. Sure. So as you get closer to the thruway, obviously you're getting higher increase. The north monitoring periods were 60.4 and 60.5. So, they were pretty consistent. Yeah. Anything could factor into this. This could be maybe the east residence AC unit kicked on. I mean, if you stand next to an AC unit, that's about 60 decibels. It's basically kind of an equivalent of what one of our inverters would be as a residential AC unit at that same distance. So that's kind of the level, and I think town staff can kind of echo that based on our site trip to Parma, where there's a very defined point where you walk a foot away from it, you can kind of not hear it, and then you take one step closer and you can kind of hear the little buzz. And it's just mostly fans, things cooling equipment, so it's very similar to that.
Thank you.
Name of the transformer. Wasn't the throughway. You shouldn't hear much closer.
Was the frequency annoying, or was it dull?
Lower frequency for the transformer.
Not a high-pitched, irritating
No.
type of sound, okay.
Could be bothered by it.
Right.
100 feet away, and
Mhm.
Keith probably corroborate that. You can hear it. He walked away, he started talking, I said, he's louder than that.
Yeah, I would echo what Joe said. It's like
somewhere between like 50 and 100 feet. You get past that and you can't hear it at all. And I paced it out, and I was talking to the group from where I was standing, and they couldn't even hear me talk either. And this is 300 feet, I think, or it's actually over that.
This is over that, right, because we are outside of, the equipment's obviously outside of our 300-foot residential buffer, because we can't take any vegetation, we're not planning on that down there. So I believe our, your inverter group's right here, the edge of that 300-foot buffer is kind of here. So this, from that residence, you're in that, I believe it's like 350, 400-foot range.
And that-
one of the comments that we received from the neighbor was that we should go out and see it when the sun is out and it's activated, and I presume that the sun was out and things were happening when you were out there.
Oh, yeah, it was,
Yes.
it was hotter than today. It was probably in the mid-80s perhaps when we were out there.
Yeah, it was last Wednesday, I think.
Well, the sun was shining.
Tuesday. Yeah, it was like
one of the
80,
hot days with no
85 and
sun.
bright sun.
No clouds, right.
And the distances that the chairman and I are talking about being standing away from, that's like a straight shot to the inverters, like nothing in between us as far as plant material, other solar panels, other
Right.
equipment, anything.
So hopefully it gives you a sense of what we experienced out at the site.
That seems like a good time to have visited then versus a cloudy day, right?
Yeah, and one of the reasons we also wanted to visit on a nice sunny day was looking at, glare and
Right.
what kind of reflective nature those panels had on a bright sunny day with the sun way up. And the worst thing was just the haze from the fires out west, I think. It wasn't a crystal clear day like today was. So,
So actually, would you mind going back to those cross-section exhibit? So this was one more forward, please. Hey, oh,
The other way.
yeah, the black and white one. Yeah, perfect. So this is a cross-section exhibit. We made 3 cross-sections, all going through the house to the east, because obviously that's kind of been identified as the main point of concern. These cross-sections, I know you can't really see too much detail on this. These are one-to-one cross-sections, so there's no vertical or horizontal exaggeration, so sight lines are true on this. We basically modeled the residence over here on each side as, a 20-foot structure, 16-foot observation height. We kind of tried to mark in the buffer of the existing brush in there just to try and identify it. I'm not trying to say that this is, unviewable through this or anything like that. Obviously, the board or the chairman saw this firsthand. And then kind of marked where our proposed vegetation is, where like the fence is, and then every one of these is the actual panel rows that goes through this cross-section, like to scale, to really give you an idea of the vertical change kind of from multiple different directions on this. And then obviously glare kind of, I think, being the last thing that we've kind of talked about for this house. So I spent a while looking at a lot of the raw data from the glare study this afternoon and trying to identify some of the questions that came up. One from Labella about us modifying potentially the panel racking angle. Unfortunately, that isn't something that we can accommodate. The panel system itself involves a component of backtracking on the sun. So the panels themselves are bifacial, right on that last page that you just had. So there is some amount of light that reflects off the panels that hits the underside of it that we are able to capture and turn back in energy. So changing that angle really impacts the production curve and stuff of this. So we can't modify that angle. However, when I looked at the glare study, as part of that, the angle and the panels are all measured in there. So we're able to really determine exactly what panels are causing the glare. And if you would go back to just any of the site plans or the colored rendering. And basically what we're seeing is the glare is only from the panels that are going to be slightly north of the house, right? So anything that's south of this would hit this and then bounce back and you wouldn't see it because we're talking about the sun causing glare for a short period of time in the evening when the sun's low and the angle's bouncing back. So the glare basically starts about east-west with the house and it kind of comes up at an angle to basically about the midpoint of our other 300-foot buffer on the other side. So it's really the glare we're talking about is this kind of area right here based on the modeling. That is in direct line of where all of our landscaping is proposed to help block this. And obviously, the glare study does, the way it's modeled here, there's no woods, there's no blockages. So this is assuming that we have basically cut down all these trees because those aren't part of the National Land Cover Database for wooded areas. So we're not modeling them as opaque. So basically in the model, there's nothing there. So this is assuming that we basically have a clear shot from this person's backyard or second story window at a 16-foot observation height down into those. That's not, fully true of this. Obviously, there's the existing vegetation that's going to stay there, plus everything that we're supplementing. We also had some discussions while we were on site reviewing that buffer, walking along and just try and see the vegetation. We've committed to planting, a number of trees. I believe it's in the low 30s out here. So some of the things that we suggested that would be part of the planting process would be, okay, let's go out there, assuming everything, gets to this point in the winter when there's no vegetation with town staff, and look at the best locations to plant evergreens to help supplement where the existing vegetation is lacking in that brush or where it may not be filled in. And then also we can do that again, because we're not going to plant in the winter. Then in the spring or the summer, assuming we're in construction next year, we can, before we plant these, again, we can meet with your landscape consultant, look at these locations in the field prior to planting and adjust them, regroup them, densify the areas that need to be supplemented, but help to basically build out the buffering between us and the sound generating equipment, as well as, within that kind of view line of what the glare study is showing us for where the glare is coming from, and then to also supplement buffer for just visuals in general from this, even if it's looking, north to an area where there might not be glare, but they might still have a view of the panel. Obviously, we're understanding of that too. So any questions on kind of the glare or the sound or kind of that landscaping component?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do a simulation, kind of like what you do with a sound study where you have a receptor at a certain location? I mean, could you create some sort of simulation for that particular residence that's in question, and show us what they might experience in terms of glare under certain circumstances?
Yeah, so the glare study that we submit, basically that models 365 days a year, takes into account the exact location of the panels, the angle of the sun, how it changes throughout the day, and it models every minute of every day and checks for where that angle of refraction and incident angles are from that observation point. So every house that's in that study, you have to have a view of this to have glare. So I think everything kind of to the west of us, we're kind of just assuming we don't have views at this point based on the screening and buffering that we maintain. So the only observation point or residence in our whole study that has any other views is this location. In the glare study, it's modeled as a 16-foot height. So pretending that you're standing in a second-story window and you have a 360-degree receptor from that location. So I guess in the Gray's case, if they do truly have a second-story deck in their backyard, assuming they're standing on it and they can look in any direction.
So Scott, are you looking for something that's actually a picture, if you will?
I
that- that
guess I'm
shows a
trying
view
to
out the
imagine
window?
a visual on this, if I am standing in that particular location and I'm on my second floor deck or whatever it is, and I'm looking out to the northwest or which looks like the direction. Am I gonna get a face full of glare and I can't see anything and I have to put sunglasses on, or what's it gonna be like?
So in the glare study, there are in the depths of the data in there is 4 modelings that are going on. There is a model for a 3-foot panel height, which is the bottom of the panel, and there's a model for 12-foot panel height, which is the top of that. And then it models a couple different groupings. So the grouping we're talking about is observation point number 5, which is the eastern residence. So this is one of those printouts from it. And in that chart, they have these little graphs, and unfortunately, I've been trying to get the raw data for these, but what this shows is the day of the year, so January through December, has the time of the day from 0 to 24 hours. And the green is kind of here is like where the glare occurs and like what period of time. This is a minutes per day average, so in this one off this panel grouping, it is potentially causing up to 20 minutes of green glare. It has the, green versus the yellow and the red for, potential damage. Basically, the sun is kind of like way up on that red line right up there. If you look at the sun temporarily unprotected, that's kind of the level you're talking about. But in this case, everything obviously off this grouping is all green. And so there's a couple of these different groupings in here. So what I would like to try and do is try and organize this data a little bit better for you, so it's a little more presentable, so you guys don't have to go through the depths of this and try and interpret these graphs and do this. So we'll basically kind of gather this for this one observation point, because I think, unless you guys have any other concerns for glare, I think writing that up would kind of give at least a very good summary of what's going on, because it is included in the model throughout the whole year. And that way we can say, from April to October is when they kind of potentially have this.
Yeah, I think that would be good for us and also the resident who's also particularly interested. Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing.
I can't hear.
That would be a good thing for him to do what he stated in terms of putting this in a more condensed version that's easier to understand versus the analysis.
Particularly, is the worst day going to be December the 15th? Actually, the longest day of the year would be July the 15th. Maybe at noon would be the worst day for glare, and it would be X amount of glare potentially. I think that's kind of useful too. What's the worst case scenario for glare?
And is there a coating or something that's on these panels that helps reduce the glare?
Yes, there is an anti-reflective coating that's on all the panels that we've used on all of their projects across the whole state. So that's on the submittal that we sent with the panels.
So if you look out, if you're out, like when I was out in the field with everyone, I specifically walked right up to the panels and tried to find where the sun was hitting a panel and what kind of glare you'd get. And I could stare at the sun and not get blinded. There's that least amount of,
So you're seeing the sun come and reflect.
and run right back to me, yeah, just, there's the bright spot where the sun hits any panel, and it's only one spot. Because it's not, unless you have a whole series of panels that are all
Okay.
different angles to then all concentrate every bullet at you, you don't get anything but that one spot. Yeah, there's how to put this, sort of a milky gray color to the balance of the panels but it's not a shine. Their goal is to absorb all that.
Right. They're designed to absorb the light,
Right,
not
yeah.
reflect or refract it. So
So I tried to look for the most offensive look, if you will, when I was out there. And, other than just seeing a sea of panels, which is obviously different than a nice green
Right,
field,
right.
there's no glare that hits you in the face.
Okay.
Yeah, can you go back to the site plan again?
They're also textured too. Not
Textured.
only is there like a anti-glare coating, but they're textured. So like Joe
Yeah.
was saying, like when you're looking right at them, and Lisa, I think you said the pictures I took, I put in the active files. Did they get that?
Yeah, there's a whole series of pictures in.
That would be helpful to see that too. I'm just trying to get a handle on what this actually, and I'm sorry that I couldn't make the trip. I really wanted to be there.
Yeah, so I guess imagine the red dot is basically the sun glare spot. As it moves across the day each time, when they do get glare, it'll kind of like, as the sun moves, it'll work its way across the panel, and then obviously that spot will go away. It's not like the glare hits that and they've got 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is of the whole field being lit up like a Christmas tree and all coming directly in them. It doesn't work like that. The sun has to hit the right spot on the panel and then get reflected back at it at the correct angle. So, the spot at the start would be here, maybe at the end of the day it's over here, or whether it moves across, whichever way. It's not this is 20 minutes of blinding, like I can't be outside and I'm getting like just, annihilated by the sun. And again, this also assumes that sun hitting that panel, coming through that, magically gaps whatever existing vegetation's there that doesn't provide a blockage. So, it's kind of like maintaining the existing vegetation, adding additional landscaping where we know that glare has potential, and then really trying to block the views of the panels, specifically from that glare area with, specific landscape plantings that will eventually over time,
A little bit, it's not.
try to attempt to make a complete screen for them at a height that would even, manage a second story window or higher.
I was passing around pictures that Keith, and this was the most reflectivity I saw on any of them. There was no sun. Like I said, it's not a brilliant sunshine. It's you still see the color of the under.
It's not like the sun that, I'm thinking of High Street at 96 when I'm going to leave for the meeting here tonight, and the sun's starting to set across Eastview Mall, and
Oh, no,
sun's
yeah, it's
almost
not like a
horizontal,
bunch
and
of
it's blind-
skylights or
it's
something on
blinding at the
Walmart.
traffic light. You can't tell if the traffic light is green or red or what color it is because the sun's right in your face.
Yes, I've
But
experienced it.
we're not seeing anything like that.
No, this isn't like you're looking directly at the sun, obviously, either. And all the, and the study too includes, again, this chart over here, which is the green, yellow, red glare. And looking at the sun is this spot way up here, like right on that yellow, red line. And we're talking about things down in green that, you know, aren't going to have, like, high potentially even cause an after image, you know, as Mr. Logan was saying.
The other question that I had on the panels is, these panels have like a 30-year lifespan, right? Is that correct, that they need to be redone or reset or decommissioned after 30 years?
So they're regularly maintained, obviously. So if they have a panel that goes down, they have somebody on site to repair it or swap it out. At the end of the project life, either, you know, if they're not going to renew approvals, et cetera, that would be part of the decommissioning. Yeah, I don't know. Is it approximately 30 years?
25?
20, yeah. But obviously, you know, in the future, ideally, you know, I don't think any of us will probably be around at that point.
You'll
but
still be on the board.
You know, ideally, the technology is going to be better then, so maybe you can take down half the racks even, and then put up the, you know, same number of panels to put back that same power, or maybe, you know, in the future, this can become like a 10 megawatt site if, you know, the panels get so much more efficient for capturing that as the technology kind of continues to evolve.
But right now with the technology that we have, it's got a like 25, 30-year lifespan approximately, is that right?
Yeah, that's the estimated life of like these panels in the system.
Does that mean that when you set this up and you turn everything on, that you're outputting 100% and then it proceeds to go down to 50% at 15 years or something like that? Is it a linear reduction in what you get out of this field?
It should be at the point where the facility is going to be decommissioned or repowered or something at the 35-year lifespan. The panels would be about 80% as efficient as they are at the beginning of the when the facility is commissioned.
You're only losing 20% of
Losing
the
20?
design life of the,
Okay.
or the design life of the,
I was just curious,
panel.
thank you.
Right, and then to kind of, Scott, kind of on top of that, obviously, our power generation here, we don't have batteries. So if the amount of power I can put into the grid at any point is 10, the power generation as the sun's at the peak of the day, it follows a bell curve when you have more direct rays. So say from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I can produce 12. That just goes back in the ground because the grid can't take anymore and we don't have batteries to charge it. So even once you get to that later stage at 80%, it may still be outputting, you know, the capacity that the grid can take that it's sized on. You know, normally if you have a project with this with battery, that extra generated gets stored, and then at night when there's no power, then it gets pushed back in the grid. So those kind of go through a cycle. We don't have that here though. This is just, we generate what we can during the day, goes in the grid, otherwise the rest of it's just put in the ground.
Really? Okay. Interesting. I was just curious, that's all.
We're happy to answer all these questions. So I think at this point, you know, unless there's other specific things you guys want to discuss.
I do have a question or comment. So first of all, I do appreciate, right, all the additional, you know, sound studies and the cross sections on the view shed. So I think that largely answers any questions or concerns I had there. One of probably the last topic that the adjacent homeowners have expressed is from the existing condition is periodic significant water runoff from the site. I think we've talked about that this site won't exacerbate that condition, but do we expect it to actually mitigate through retaining more of the water on site through the retention pond to improve the current water runoff from the site or not?
So we're not increasing any of the runoff rates. In terms of runoff going to the east, we're capturing probably a small, tiny portion of it, basically where our access drive is going to go up through the site. We have a swale on the east side of it. So basically anything that would get into that is going to get captured, taken to our facility, and then comes down. That wouldn't go down. What the grades
So
are saying
there
is the road
anything
runoff.
that could reasonably be done to significantly improve the condition as an enhancement to the homeowner?
Not without doing stuff that would go against the DEC's stormwater general permit. You know, if that's something that you guys want to talk about as the MS4 and reviewing that and kind of being okay with it, I think really, you know, the fact that all these areas down here are in a 100-year floodplain. This area is very prone to flooding because of the creek that comes through here. I think the only alternative to take water away from this residence here would be to take more of it into the facility and then put it down into this other resident's yard. So we're really trying to not
And
change.
we're not looking to divert it.
Right, I'm not trying to
have
change the
it become
drainage
someone
patterns, 'cause
else's
I don't
problem,
wanna-
but I just
we're-
think to retain it, right, on site, if that's even feasible, I don't know, but.
I think that's a good comment. I think maybe if you could, and I think what's being said here is maybe you could over-design it. Or just, maybe, I understand what you need to do for the permit, but maybe you could do a little bit more, and that would be another mitigation measure, that's all.
And viewed as the resident as an enhancement and improvement versus just I'm doing no harm, I'm actually now benefiting slightly.
Sure, I'm just trying to, so kind of really the only way to take water away from the trouble area would be to, and I gotta look at the grades, is potentially trying to take something and swale it all the way north and actually add more drainage area going to the north area versus going to the east or south. Obviously, I can
If you-
reduce
yeah,
the
if you could
rates
just
to
take a
those.
look at it and
But it would obviously
explore it.
have an increase to the north end without us having to do some stormwater facilities, which, because of the buffering and stuff, we are a little bit maxed out in our site capacity.
So the way to do, in your opinion, the way to do that might be to take the drainage to the north, but then in doing so, you might remove some vegetation that would work against the shielding, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying, like, if we need to, then, if the town isn't willing to accept, I'm signing the MS4, because obviously as the town, you guys have the ability to do some things against the DEC permit requiring individual, speedies, et cetera. If we were to take some of this watershed, so, some of this area today, basically just sheet flows over toward that residence. We weren't gonna do anything with that except for the additional landscape plantings in there. If we look to cut an entire perimeter swale along this outside of our fence or something, we could potentially try and drain some of this north to that under the thruway. There's obviously a whole number of things though that would have to happen for that. It would have to be something the town would be willing to accommodate, because I don't think that we can do that without putting, or if we need to do some kind of facility, then we would have to do something up here, and we would need to recapture some additional room that we can't use because of those buffers.
I think I saw that you had like a bioretention pond or something like that in there.
Correct. Do you happen to have the drainage map from a couple meetings ago with the red lines and the blue lines that the neighbor was?
Unlikely.
I think that was Wes.
Was that Wes?
on his computer,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah,
didn't-
so, I mean, we don't need to problem solve it tonight,
Right.
but that's kind of the
Yeah.
ask, if we can do further mitigation.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I just bring up bioretention because bioretention has a way of absorbing a lot of water and then eventually dispersing it at a slower rate, as I think you know. If you disperse it out of there, and maybe if we can just slow it down. And I agree with what you're saying about the swale to the north, but I was just thinking, once again, to Al's comment about enhancing, over-designing perhaps a little bit what you've presented so far.
So what I'm a little concerned about is just if I'm trying to collect the water that's today sheet flowing off our property this way, and I collect it in a bioretention, I need an elevation to discharge it, and then I'm effectively concentrating this small trickle. Now, I know I can manage a little bit with that, but I'd be hesitant to create a point source discharge when today it does sheet flow over there.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a stormwater engineer, but the solar farm that we visited up in Parma, it's basically brush hogged the whole site several times a year, correct? So the grass stays pretty tall, even under these panels. And I'm looking at one of Keith's pictures here. Sheet flow is a relative issue with that. I mean, it seems to me that it may sheet off the panels, but as soon as it hits the ground, it's just going to sit there and move slowly through the grass. It's not flowing like a flood. As soon as you start focusing or concentrating with drainage ditches and all that, it seems to me that makes the problem worse, not
It can, yeah.
mitigate.
Right,
Oh.
but Joe, I think the point is, the site today has a runoff issue, according to the resident.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out what that
It has nothing to do
issue
with
is.
the panels, right? Again,
No,
we're
I'm
doing
not-
no harm.
I'm
right?
just saying that, which is, I'm showing panels with grass, long cut, that takes a lot of water right there, and seems to me it moves awfully slowly. It's not like, it's 10 feet of water with a little bit of seagrass on the bottom. It's, a foot of grass that's keeping it from flowing. It moves, obviously, with gravity, but it doesn't, like I said, I'm not a stormwater engineer, but it just seems like it's not that big of a problem, because once it gets off the panels, it just hits the ground and, it just in a different spot than where it would have hit otherwise.
Right,
And there's
but-
grass even underneath these panels.
Prior to panels going there,
Right.
there's a water runoff issue.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what that is, so,
According to the residents, right? There's,
right,
in a severe rain event, right, they get flooding in their front yard every
yeah.
time.
But are we making it worse by putting panels?
No,
in?
I think the
Right.
answer is no.
Right,
Right. My question was, though, is there anything that the applicant could do to enhance the
Enhance it?
current state
yeah,
situation? Is
Okay.
an enhancement versus a do no harm?
all right. Well, as long as that, I guess you can answer the question yes or no, and so, yes, this is what we would do. I'm just thinking, you don't want to be too drastic about it, because then if it makes it worse all of a sudden,
Right.
And
We
the-
don't want to create a problem for someone else.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you could take a
understandable.
look at it, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it, and I'll come back with kind of some
I'm
kind
kind
of.
of talking it through in my head here, because
You got us all thinking about it, now we're gonna try to solve the problem.
I appreciate the input. We'll
kinda-
we'll definitely take a look at it and see
Meet
if
you over
there's
at your
some kind
office
of
and
way
we'll
we
figure
can either further detain or add something. I mean, maybe it's
Yeah.
something like we put a couple additional level spreaders over in that area to really make sure that we're slowing down the water from our site or
Sure.
something before it gets there. But we'll come up with something.
yeah, to your point, I get it, that if it's a problem, but I don't see how this makes it any worse.
Yeah, I don't believe it does.
Yeah.
But
So,
again, if
if
I'm
we
there
can
and I'm
improve
saying,
it,
look, I really
yeah.
don't want a solar farm next door to me, but I partially can solve an existing condition, that might
Yeah,
make it a little more palatable.
okay. All right, well, I'll be interested to see how you address that, James. So-
So I think then besides that, unless there's any other things, when we got glare to the neighbor and drainage concerns, I think are the last two things. Obviously, being now our third meeting in front of you, I don't think I've heard any new comments or concerns or anything that we haven't been able to really address.
I'm sure we'll be addressing comments from resident nearby. And the landscaping will be an interesting conversation to see how thoroughly we can buffer that view from their property and situation to the panels themselves. So, and we talked a little bit about that in the field, that giving that landscaping some depth so the trees don't like run into each other but overlap front to back, zigzag, or whatever it takes, would be important. And then in the long run, maintenance of that landscaping buffer.
Right, and I think, part of that will obviously be the normal town guarantees for you guys, as well as just their maintenance plan, maintaining
Right.
that. I mean, obviously, we're here for a special use permit for you guys, so obviously you guys can create some conditions about landscaping and stuff,
Yeah, I mean, you drive along the thruway and you see, oh, they put all these little evergreen trees and like half of them are brown, but a year
From the
later.
road salt.
Yeah, right. So that's clearly not what anybody wants, so.
No, not at all.
But yeah, making sure that that's addressed with the affected residents. And to that, all of the houses on the west side have a 300-foot buffer, just like the one on the east. But the west side, that's all woods. There's no field up to an edge, so they're supplementing for the east area only because there's nothing there. So, I mean, yeah, the ground brush is pretty high, but that's not going to help in the wintertime.
That's right.
So, I don't have a concern, honestly, with glare or anything else on the houses to the west. And the Golisano property is way down below. They don't even know it's there. So, but the one parcel there, the Gray's property, is probably the biggest challenge for mitigating that. So, unless you guys have anything else, public comments, Dave, step right up.
Hi, Dave Nankin from 1174 Chaucer Court. Listening to all of this, I just had an idea. I don't know if it's any good or not, but the people who were here at the last meeting, complained, brought up the fact that their property values would be affected by this. And I just thought perhaps if we could get, the board could get, or whomever would be responsible, talk to a realtor and see what, from a realtor's point of view, what would be the detriment to a sale because being so close to a facility of this nature. It might not be. I mean, if I were in the market for a home and it was a nice piece of property, it wouldn't bother me at all, but perhaps other people would. But it would be interesting to get a perspective from a Realtor, I think, or two, to see what their thoughts would be.
I had a conversation about that with Wes out in the field, actually, when we were going around the site, and did talk about property values specifically. And he has said that, and he repeated this, that while there may be a depression in the property value, after a while it rises back up again. There's been studies to that effect.
Oh.
I'll let him address that in more detail, but certainly we'll make sure we address it during, our review, seeker review. So, and we've had economists from, from the area make comments on other projects, like when Victor Commerce Park was coming in, that was a huge discussion on property values and all of that. And I remember those conversations as well. So it's been discussed, not in formal detail, but we will formally discuss it when we go through seeker, which I think our next step is to start working on part 2. And since we've gotten, the noise study and view shed and sections and things that the applicants provided, now we can advance that part 2 seeker review. So in the end, the town board has to approve the decommissioning plan before we formally give it a go-ahead, but we have to review and say, yes, this is what we're recommending as an approvable site plan to the town board. So once we get through that, goes to the town board with the decommissioning plan that they review and accept or not, or make comments. Once the decommissioning plan is accepted by the town board, it comes back to us for final vote, basically, final approval. So that's it. It's probably a few meetings down the road, both ways. So if that helps.
Just one other question.
Okay, sure.
As for the glare, I mean, what months would be the most severe of glare? Because the changing in the height of the sun and the angle and such, I mean, would the winter time was from, let's say, November until March, there wouldn't be anything, perhaps?
That's approximately correct. There is no glare from. Glare is always.
You're not at the mic, sorry.
Yes, what he's saying is correct. The glare study, and it shows, again, approximate minutes per day when that glare is being received and what months of the year it's occurring. So for observation point number 5 here, we're talking specifically, it's from, mid-March approximately through, approximately the end of October, around there.
Mm-hmm.
The glare they receive is somewhere between, 20 to 25 minutes average a day in the evening, from somewhere between like 5 and 7. Again, those vary over the course of the year based on the sun angle, and they vary, accordingly, again, length of day based on the sun angle. So.
Okay, thanks, James. Anything else, Dave?
Just curious. In a snow, if you had a snow, you get glare from the reflection from the sun to some extent. And I know the sun is lower, but how would you compare, let's say, reflection from the snow onto a property as opposed to the panels from March to October or something like that? I mean, I know it's a hard question.
I've never studied snow reflectivity in a study, so I don't understand how it would relate to other panel reflectivity. But
It's really bright in the snow, and you're
Well,
practically blinded.
snow blindness
Yeah,
and such.
sure.
I was just curious.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
Dave.
Thank you.
That happens when I'm skiing.
Yeah, Mr. Wright.
David Wright, 33 Ketchum Street. I'm going to make a few assumptions here that, number one, there'll be a fence around the
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
project.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that it's the property line where the yellow is that where the fence would be?
No, there's like a pink line that's right
Oh.
20 feet around the outside of it.
James, run up to the
Okay.
mic. I'm gonna keep
Okay,
it.
and,
Hang on.
And
Yeah.
that's the fence line.
That's basically, yeah.
okay. And, I assume that because it's probably wide open now, it's wooded, it's meadow, whatever,
Mostly meadow, but there's,
a,
Susie, is there a display with the landscaping on there? Oh, I might help Dave see that. That one? No.
well, and it looks like there's open space on both sides of the property there. They don't go, no houses or streets or anything up.
Yeah, the
Up
green,
against
the
the,
lime green is
thruway.
like everything that's kept
And
somewhat.
regardless of that, I assume that there's a population of deer that go
Yeah, we
migrate
spooked a
across
doe.
there. So I'm sure in the environmental study, they'll look at how that fence and that property will affect the deer population.
It's interesting, pushing deer towards the
It'll
thruway,
be,
in a way.
if the deer would be more apt to try to go across the thruway, then depending on how high the fence is and if it's a clear fence or not. If it's a 6-foot-high fence, the deer will jump over it if they can see the other side.
It's,
If it's a 9-foot-high fence, they won't be jumping over that.
hey, I don't,
Well,
your
it kind of
fence
all
out,
depends on what they
Parma was
propose.
easily 8 feet, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
The fence at the solar farm in Parma that we visited, it was easily 8 feet.
8 feet?
Yeah, it's very, I don't see a deer jumping over that thing.
And it's open so you can see the other side of it?
See through the fence.
See through the
But 8
fence.
feet is National Electric.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think that'll be addressed in the environmental
Yeah.
That's a good point.
study.
Okay, thanks, Dave. If anything else from the board or nothing else from the board, I guess we're done, unless you have something else for us, James?
Yeah, just kind of like, again, going over next steps. So I think we would like to request, at this point, we'll bring some of the information on the couple things we talked about, submit to you guys for the next meeting, try and get it ahead so you can review it. But we'd really like to kind of start moving forward with part 2, part 3 of the EAF, if we get to that point. And again, as the chairman said, you guys do need to make a recommendation of the decommissioning plan to the town board, and we need to go there and get that process done with them first before we can come back for final site plan.
Yeah.
So obviously, if we get through the process next meeting, potential seeker, resolution, as well as potential recommendation on the decommissioning plan if everything looks okay, just so we can kind of get that process. Because obviously, if we're at the town board for a couple meetings, this is going to push us into September, and then just trying to be cognizant of, obviously construction season this year, and then getting prepped to get going next year if we do move into it. So.
Kate, I don't know if Wes discussed the part 2 with you yet, or is he, I think he was working on it or getting ready to move ahead with part 2 seeker.
Yeah, I can't say definitively, but I believe that he is working on
Yeah,
it.
I mean, he and I chatted out in the field about, next steps, and I did rush through it a few minutes ago, but I think his intent was to move ahead with part 2, now that we've got the extra information that you've provided. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay?
All right. If anything else comes up, obviously have Lisa reach out to us and we'll try and get stuff together.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your help
You're
with this.
welcome. Thanks. Anything else, guys? Gals?
I'll just make one note, that we provided the DEC Assessing and Mitigating Noise Impact publication from 2000. The applicant had referenced this, that they were using this sort of as a base when they did their noise study. And so those copies are available to the board, as well as there are copies in the back if anyone is interested.
Okay.
I think I got one in my packet.
Yep, I should have it electronically. So. All right, well, thanks, Kate. All right, next meeting, motion to adjourn? Joe? Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone.